In 1944, the United States was pushing hard in the Pacific during World War II. By then, battles had been raging for years, and both sides were getting tired. But the United States had a big goal: to reach Japan and end the war. Iwo Jima, a small island in the Pacific, started to look really important in this plan. Iwo Jima is only about 8 square miles, but its location made it crucial. The island sat halfway between the Mariana Islands and Japan. The United States needed a base closer to Japan for their airplanes, especially the new B-29 Superfortress bombers. These planes could carry big loads and fly long distances, but they needed somewhere safe to land if they were in trouble. Iwo Jima was perfect for this. The main people involved in this scenario on the United States side were leaders like Admiral Chester Nimitz, General Holland Smith, and Lieutenant General Harry Schmidt. They were part of the plan to take the island. Meanwhile, defending Iwo Jima was the Japanese General Tadamichi Kuribayashi. He was aware of the United States' power, but was determined to hold the island. So, what actually happened? Let's break it down. Before any troops landed, the United States spent days bombing the island from the air and sea. They wanted to weaken the Japanese defenses. However, it was February 19, 1945, when the real action began. United States Marines, some as young as 18 themselves, landed on the beaches. Simply put, they faced a brutal time. Iwo Jima was not easy to take. The Japanese forces had built bunkers and tunnels all over the island. General Kuribayashi instructed his men not to fire until they saw enemy soldiers in clear sight. This tactic made things difficult for the Marines because they could not see where the attacks were coming from. Technically, the technology used was quite straightforward. Weapons included M1 Garand rifles for the Marines and Type 97 hand grenades for the Japanese soldiers. Tanks and artillery also played a big role. The Japanese had heavy machine guns and 320mm mortars hidden in tunnels, making it hard for the Americans to advance. The challenges were immense. The United States forces had to deal with hot weather, rough terrain, and constant enemy fire. The heavy black sand of the beaches slowed them down. But after more than a month of fierce fighting, the United States finally captured Iwo Jima on March 26, 1945. The battle was one of the bloodiest in the Pacific, with a high number of casualties on both sides. In the end, the United States took control of Iwo Jima. This victory provided a critical base for American forces. The airfields on the island were quickly used by the B-29 bombers, which made it easier to reach Japan. In fact, over 2,000 damaged aircraft were able to make emergency landings there in the months that followed, thanks to the new base. So, why should we care about Iwo Jima today? The battle marked a turning point in World War II. It showed how important every bit of land could be in war strategies. For the United States, it was a stepping stone towards ending the war. For historians and anyone interested in military history, it stands as a testament to the determination and courage of those who fought on both sides. Today, Iwo Jima reminds us of the costs of war and the importance of peace. In February 1945, the world was in the grip of World War II. The Allies were pushing back against Axis powers, fighting on multiple fronts to bring the war to an end. One small island, Iwo Jima, became a critical piece of this massive puzzle. The United States wanted to capture the island because it was close to Japan and perfect for launching air attacks. The battle on this tiny island would become one of the toughest in the Pacific. The operation to take Iwo Jima was called Operation Detachment. The main people involved included General Holland Smith from the United States Marine Corps and the Japanese commander Tadamichi Kuribayashi. General Smith was in charge of the assault, while Kuribayashi, a smart and experienced leader, was tasked with defending the island at any cost. He knew he was outnumbered, but planned to make the United States fight hard for every inch of land. So, what happened? On February 19, 1945, the United States launched their attack. Early in the morning, thousands of Marines landed on the beaches, but they found the terrain really tough. Instead of sand, there was loose volcanic ash that made moving difficult. The Japanese soldiers had also built a network of hidden tunnels and bunkers, turning the island into a fortress. They waited in silence, holding their fire, and then suddenly attacked, catching many Marines off guard. The United States had planned to bomb the island from the sea and sky before the Marines landed, hoping to destroy the Japanese defenses. Massive ships fired shells, and airplanes dropped bombs. But the Japanese bunkers were so well hidden that many survived the bombardment. When the Marines landed, they faced fierce resistance. A technical detail is the weapons used. United States forces had Sherman tanks and flamethrowers, while Japanese soldiers had artillery hidden in caves. One example is the American 75mm howitzer, used for softening enemy positions. The battle became a mix of artillery duels, hand-to-hand fights, and clever strategy. There were lots of problems. The rough terrain and hidden enemies made it hard for the United States Marines. Communication was tricky, and because the island was so small, it was packed with soldiers, explosions, and chaos. The weather was another issue, with rain making it even harder to move around. After 5 weeks of intense fighting, the United States finally took control of Iwo Jima. About 21,000 Japanese soldiers were there, and very few survived. The United States suffered too, with nearly 7,000 Marines losing their lives, and thousands more wounded. It was one of the bloodiest battles the Marine Corps had ever faced. So, why does this matter today? The capture of Iwo Jima was a significant moment in World War II. It showed the incredible bravery and resilience of young soldiers fighting in tough conditions. The famous photograph of Marines raising the United States flag on Mount Suribachi became an icon of American perseverance. This battle is remembered today because it highlights the sacrifices made by so many during the war. It was a turning point that helped lead to the end of World War II by bringing American forces closer to Japan. Understanding this event helps us appreciate the challenges and strategies of war, and reminds us of the human cost of such conflicts. In February 1945, the Pacific front of World War II was heating up. The United States forces had a big goal: take over Iwo Jima, a small island, but a really important one. Iwo Jima was about 750 miles from Japan, and it had airfields that the United States wanted to use for their airplanes. Taking the island could help the United States attack Japan more directly and protect their bombers. The main players in this battle were the United States Marines and the Japanese Army. Leading the Marines was General Holland Smith, a tough and determined leader. On the Japanese side was General Tadamichi Kuribayashi. Kuribayashi was also smart and had prepared his men for a tough fight. He knew that holding Iwo Jima was crucial for Japan. On February 19, 1945, about 70,000 United States Marines began landing on the beaches of Iwo Jima. The plan seemed simple: reach the beaches, take over the island, and control the airfields. But things were not so easy. The landings began at the southern part of the island. At first, it seemed calm, and the troops thought they might have an easy time. But soon, things changed. Japanese soldiers, who had been hiding in underground bunkers, started to fire back with everything they had. The Japanese defenses were strong and well organized. General Kuribayashi had built a network of tunnels and bunkers using the island's volcanic rock. This made them hard to find and even harder to destroy. They were prepared to fight back fiercely. The Marines faced machine guns, mortars, and artillery. The Japanese had also set up large cannons and guns in strategic spots, including the 75mm cannons, which could hit the Marines hard as they tried to move forward. Moving under such conditions was tough. The island itself was made of dark volcanic sand, which was really soft and made walking difficult. Tanks and trucks struggled to move through it, getting stuck or bogged down. Communication was another big challenge. With so much noise and chaos, getting clear orders and updates was hard. Soldiers had to rely on radios, but even these sometimes broke or failed. Despite these problems, the United States Marines pushed forward. They used flamethrowers and grenades to clear bunkers and tunnels. Day after day, they slowly advanced, inch by inch. The fighting was hard and brutal. Every ridge and hill became a tough battle, especially around Mount Suribachi, an important high point on the island. After a few days, on February 23rd, some Marines reached the top of Mount Suribachi. They famously raised an American flag there, a moment captured in a photo that became iconic. But the battle was not over. Fighting continued for weeks, with constant struggles against deep defenses and surprising counterattacks. It was not until March 26th that the United States finally declared the island secure. The Battle of Iwo Jima had big results. It showed how strong and determined both sides were. The United States was able to use the captured airfields for their bombers, helping them in later attacks against Japan. But the cost was high. Thousands of soldiers lost their lives, both American and Japanese. Today, the battle is remembered as a testament to bravery and strategy under intense pressure. It reminds us how important it is to understand the past, learn from it, and honor those who faced such challenges. It shows us the extreme efforts made during World War II and why such moments remain significant in history. In February 1945, during World War II, the island of Iwo Jima became a major focus for the United States military. They needed a base closer to Japan to help with attacks and build a runway for their bombers. But Iwo Jima was not going to be easy to take. The island was tough, full of rough terrain, and heavily defended by Japanese forces. Mount Suribachi was the highest point on the island, and it was crucial for both sides. It offered a great view of the entire island, making it a key position for controlling the battlefield. The United States Marines knew they had to capture it. The mission was led by 5th Marine Division, featuring some key figures like Everyman Ira Hayes, Harlan Block, and Harold Schultz, all of whom were part of the historic flag-raising moment. The battle began on February 19, 1945, with a massive naval bombardment. Ships fired shells onto the beaches to soften Japanese defenses. The Marines then landed and faced immediate challenges. The beach was narrow and full of tricky volcanic ash, which made moving tanks and gear really hard. Japanese fighters used tunnels and caves, making it difficult to push forward. Step by step, the Marines fought hard. By February 23rd, they reached the top of Mount Suribachi. The first thing they did was raise an American flag to boost morale and signal their progress. This flag was quite small and not very visible from far away, but it was a big deal for the men there. However, a decision was made to raise a bigger flag. That same day, a small team of Marines climbed up with a second, larger flag. Photographer Joe Rosenthal was there to capture the moment. His photo, showing 6 Marines struggling to plant the flagpole, became famous. The image quickly symbolized American bravery and hope, even though it showed just a brief moment in a long battle. Technically, the flag raising seemed simple. The flag was attached to a pipe they found, which they used as a makeshift flagpole. But the moment became iconic, representing the determination and teamwork of many. The photo form Joe Rosenthal went on to win the Pulitzer Prize and is now one of the most recognized images of all time. Challenges were everywhere during the battle. The Japanese defenders were deeply entrenched, using tunnels and bunkers. For the Marines, supporting each other under intense fire and moving through difficult terrain was tough. Many lost their lives, and every inch of ground gained came at a high price. The results of capturing Mount Suribachi and raising the flag were significant. It boosted morale not only for the troops on the ground, but also for people back home in the United States. It signaled that the island would eventually fall, offering new stepping stones towards Japan. Today, the flag raising at Mount Suribachi is still important. It reminds us of the bravery and teamwork of those who fought in World War II. The image captures a moment of hope and triumph in the midst of adversity. It also serves as a powerful reminder of the sacrifices made during the war, showing us the cost of reaching peace and victory. Even though the Battle of Iwo Jima was incredibly tough, moments like this helped bring the Allied forces one step closer to their final goal. The Battle of Iwo Jima was a pivotal event during World War II. It all started because the United States needed a base closer to Japan for its bombers. Iwo Jima, a small island in the Pacific Ocean, was seen as the perfect spot, but taking it wouldn't be easy. The Japanese were prepared to defend it fiercely. A lot happened before the battle. By 1945, the United States had been fighting in the Pacific for years. Their forces had been moving from island to island, getting closer to Japan. Iwo Jima was next on their list. They wanted to use the island's airfields to support bombing raids on Japan. Meanwhile, the Japanese saw the island as critical for their defense and were determined to hold on to it at all costs. There were some important people involved. On the American side, there was General Holland Smith, who led the Marines. He was known for his strong leadership. On the Japanese side, Lieutenant General Tadamichi Kuribayashi was in charge. He was creative and came up with smart plans to make things tough for the attackers. The battle began on February 19, 1945. It started with a massive naval bombardment. For days, American ships fired thousands of shells at the island, hoping to weaken the Japanese defenses. But this hardly scratched the surface because the Japanese were hiding in tunnels and bunkers underground. On the first day of landing, American Marines hit the beaches. It was tough from the start. The sand on Iwo Jima was soft and made it hard for them to move quickly. Once they got off the beach, they faced a network of underground tunnels and hidden bunkers. The Japanese soldiers had spent months building these defenses. It was like a maze, and they knew it well. The Marines faced huge challenges. The weather was another problem, as volcanic ash made it hard to see and breathe. The Japanese used a tactic called defense in depth, which meant that instead of trying to stop the Americans at the beach, they let them come inland, into the traps and ambushes they had set up. The fighting was intense and went on for 36 days. The iconic image of this battle is the raising of the American flag on Mount Suribachi on February 23rd, which was 5 days into the fight. It became a symbol of hope and courage. But the battle didn't end there. It kept going, with fighting spreading all over the island. Technologically, the Americans had better equipment. They used tanks, flamethrowers, and bombing raids. But this didn't make it easy. The Japanese had concrete bunkers and those underground tunnels protecting them. They also used artillery, which are big guns that can shoot shells from far away. Despite lacking some modern technology, they used the island's natural features and their innovations to their advantage. The battle was extremely costly. For the United States, nearly 7,000 Marines were killed, and another 20,000 were wounded. For the Japanese, almost all of the 21,000 soldiers defending the island lost their lives. The cost in human life made people question if capturing the island was worth it. But strategically, It allowed the Allies to launch more effective attacks on Japan later on. So, why does this matter today? The Battle of Iwo Jima showed how determined both sides were to win World War II. It taught military planners many lessons about amphibious invasions and the importance of air power. It also symbolizes courage and sacrifice. Every year, veterans and people around the world remember what happened on that small island in the Pacific and honor those who fought and died there. This battle was a reminder of the costs of war and the bravery of those who fought for their countries. In early 1945, World War II was reaching its crucial stages in the Pacific. The United States wanted to get closer to Japan's mainland, and Iwo Jima, a small island about 750 miles from Tokyo, was perfect. It had airfields that the U.S. military really needed to launch future attacks on Japan. The fight for Iwo Jima was part of a larger plan to end the war quickly by putting pressure directly on Japan. Now, picture this. It's late February. The main players on the American side were the Marines. Led by people like General Holland Smith, who was called Howlin' Mad because of his fiery nature, the Marines had a hefty task ahead. On the other side were the Japanese forces led by General Tadamichi Kuribayashi. He was a smart and tough leader who ordered his troops to dig in and use the island's rugged terrain to their advantage. The story started with tons of preparation. Before the Marines landed, the United States Navy bombarded the island with artillery for days. Big ships launched round after round, hoping to weaken the Japanese defenses. But the Japanese were ready. They had built hidden tunnels and bunkers all over the island, making it really hard to take them by surprise. On February 19, 1945, the Marines stormed the beaches. Imagine the scene. Ash-like sand making it tricky to move, bullets flying from hidden places, and explosions everywhere. The goal was to capture Mount Suribachi, a tall volcanic mountain at the southern end of the island. This spot was critical because whoever controlled it had a major advantage. With Mount Suribachi in their sights, the Marines pushed forward. They fought yard by yard, using flamethrowers and grenades to clear bunkers and tunnels. The Japanese soldiers resisted fiercely, not giving up easily. Despite being outnumbered, they used every trick possible, like surprise attacks and setting booby traps. This brings us to the technical bits. The United States Marines had Sherman tanks, which were tough and mobile. They also had artillery support from the ships offshore. The artillery, with 105mm and 155mm guns, pounded the island. But the Japanese, hidden underground, often survived these attacks. The Marines faced a bunch of problems. First, the terrain itself was not friendly. The black volcanic sand slowed them down and made it tough to dig defensive positions. Supplies were another issue. Getting food, water, and ammunition across those tricky beaches under fire was a nightmare. Then there was the mental toll. Imagine not knowing where the next attack would come from, or if the ground you stood on could blow up at any moment. After several days of intense fighting, on February 23rd, a group of Marines famously raised the American flag atop Mount Suribachi. You've probably seen that photo. It's one of the most famous images of World War II. But the battle was not over yet, not by a long shot. The fighting continued fiercely across the island until March 26th. The results of this battle were significant. More than 6,000 American Marines died, and about 20,000 were wounded. On the Japanese side, nearly all the defenders were killed or captured. The capture of Iwo Jima provided critical airfields for American bombers and fighters. But why does this matter today? Well, the Battle of Iwo Jima showed how tough and determined both sides could be, even in the face of overwhelming odds. It's a reminder of the courage and sacrifices made. And by learning about these events, we understand the costs of war and the importance of working towards peace in our world. In early 1945, World War II was still raging. The Allies were trying to push closer to Japan to bring the war to an end. The small island of Iwo Jima became a critical part of their plan. It might have seemed just like a tiny dot in the Pacific Ocean, but controlling it was important. Before the battle, the island was a Japanese stronghold. They had built tunnels and bunkers, making it incredibly difficult to attack. Taking Iwo Jima would help the United States planes land safely and allow them to strike further into Japan. The United States Marine Corps was chosen for this tough job. They were known for their strength and bravery. Leading them was Major General Harry Schmidt. The Japanese forces were led by Lieutenant General Tadamichi Kurebayashi, who was a clever strategist and prepared a strong defense for the island. The story of the battle began on February 19, 1945. About 70,000 United States Marines landed on Iwo Jima's beaches. It wasn't easy. The beaches were filled with black volcanic sand that made it hard for them to move quickly. As soon as they landed, they were met with heavy fire from the Japanese defenders. The Japanese soldiers were hidden in bunkers and tunnels. This made the Marines' advance slow and dangerous. The battle involved intense fighting, with both sides showing incredible bravery. A famous moment came when a group of Marines raised the United States flag on Mount Suribachi, the island's highest point. Luckily, an Associated Press photographer captured this moment in a photograph that became iconic. The Marines faced many challenges. The rough terrain and strong Japanese defenses made it difficult to move forward. The Japanese soldiers were determined and fought fiercely. Both sides suffered heavy losses, with the Marines losing over 6,800 men, while almost all of the 21,000 Japanese defenders died. The harsh conditions, lack of water, and intense fighting pushed everyone to their limits. In terms of technology, the United States forces used special equipment to help them fight. This included Sherman tanks and flamethrowers to attack the hidden bunkers. The Navy also supported them with bombings from their ships. The Japanese, on their side, made use of their intricate tunnel system, which allowed them to appear from different places unexpectedly. After 36 days of grueling battle, the United States forces ultimately took control of Iwo Jima. This victory, however, came at a high cost. The Marines' courage and commitment were widely praised, and many were awarded prestigious medals for their actions. So why should any of this matter to us today? Well, the Battle of Iwo Jima is an example of ultimate sacrifice and determination. It showed how challenging and chaotic war can be, but also highlighted the bravery and heroism that people are capable of. Understanding these stories can teach us about the past and remind us of the costs of war. Today, Iwo Jima is remembered not just as a strategic victory, but as a symbol of unity and bravery in the face of extreme adversity. The famous photograph of the flag raising is seen around the world as a testament to the fighting spirit of those who served and sacrificed so much. Remembering the Battle of Iwo Jima helps us appreciate the freedoms we have and the people who fought to ensure a peaceful future for everyone. In early 1945, World War II was raging across the world, and the Pacific was a major battleground. The United States was fighting hard against Japan. One place they had their eyes on was Iwo Jima, a small island about 750 miles from Japan. It was only about 8 square miles, but its location was super important. The United States wanted it because it had airfields that could be used for attacking Japan and for landing planes in trouble during long missions. The main players in this battle were the United States Marines, led by leaders like Lieutenant General Holland Smith, and the Japanese forces commanded by Lieutenant General Tadamichi Kurebayashi. Holland Smith was known as Howlin' Mad for his tough approach to battle. while Kuribayashi was a strategic thinker who made the island a fortress. So, what happened? The attack started on February 19, 1945. The United States sent in about 70,000 Marines. They landed on beaches with strange names like Green and Red, facing a storm of bullets and bombs from the Japanese forces hidden in bunkers and tunnels. It was brutal. The Japanese defenses were strong because they had built an underground network on the island, making it a tough target. So, how did it all work? Before the Marines even landed, the United States Navy and Air Force had bombed Iwo Jima for days, trying to destroy defenses and make it easier for the Marines. The Navy used big ships with powerful guns that could fire 16-inch shells, which are about 406 millimeters wide. The Air Force used bombers like the well-known B-29 Superfortress to attack from the sky. But getting onto the island was just the start. The Marines had to use flamethrowers and tanks, like the M4 Sherman, which was a medium tank with a 75-millimeter gun, to fight the Japanese troops who were hidden in caves. The Japanese forces, under Kuribayashi, were smart and determined fighters. They used the rough, volcanic ground to their advantage, and their positions were very well concealed. This fight was tough for everyone. The Marines faced a lot of problems. Getting on the island was hard, because the beaches were made of black volcanic sand, which made it tough to move quickly. This meant they couldn't get off the beach and were easy targets. Plus, the Japanese soldiers were skilled and refused to give up, fighting to the last man. By March 26, 1945, the United States finally took control of the island. The fight lasted for 36 bloody days. About 7,000 United States Marines died, and thousands more were injured. The Japanese lost many more lives, with almost 21,000 soldiers killed. But despite these losses, capturing Iwo Jima was a big deal. It meant that the United States now had a new base close to Japan. This helped them launch more attacks and, importantly, saved the lives of many pilots who could now land safely when their planes were damaged or running out of fuel. So, why does Iwo Jima still matter today? Well, it showed just how tough and costly the fight in the Pacific was. There's also that famous picture of 5 United States Marines and a Navy corpsman raising the American flag on Mount Suribachi. It became a symbol of hope and strength. When we think about history, remembering battles like Iwo Jima helps us appreciate the bravery and sacrifices made to change the course of World War II. It's a reminder of the price of war and the courage of those who serve.